all 5 areas of governance. And some of the key findings were in access to justice, the poor performance of the local government, local governance bodies, the municipal governance. As you know, as many of us have had to suffer over the last 2 years, things like affect gender. We discussed some of the good points, such as the fact that when you look at the governance structures in South Africa, they have a lot of progress in promoting equality. There is a lot of 44% in 2022 when we did the review of parliamentarians were women. So we talk about the good, but we also discuss under cross-cutting issues. We also discuss some of the what we call endemic issues. And in particular for South Africa, we discuss what we call gender-based violence, which is multidimensional, which has a sociocultural, legal, security, economic, and public health aspect. So I would encourage you, once we publish the report, to take a look at it and work with us in trying to make sure that the National Program of Action addresses these areas of challenges, especially with respect to gender-based violence and any other areas that affect gender. And we would love to work with you on that. There are many opportunities that you can bring your input into trying to address some of these challenges, especially with respect to gender. You can work with the National Governance Commission. You can work with the National Secretariat in M&E, monitoring and evaluation of the implementation of our recommendations from the National Program of Action. You can involve yourself in future meetings with the National Governing Council or National Governance Commission. You can create your own provincial meetings where I know there's a PGC created for each province in the country, and you can work with the PGC in KZN. You can also perhaps look at, through working with colleagues like Diana, exchanging some good practices and key learnings from other local governments across our beautiful continent. For example, in Kenya, they have created what they call county level APRM structures, which try to improve governance at the county level. And maybe you can take that and replicate it in KZN. And you can maybe even work with the National Secretariat and our Continental Secretariat to discuss maybe future targeted reviews on specific gender-related topics in provincial or municipal governance in your beautiful province. So thank you very much. I really appreciated the chance to discuss the review report, second review report for your beautiful country. I thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Delma. I will ask you to remain just in case there's questions around the room. But I also wanted to thank you really for the input you've given, and especially the way you have mentioned some example about how, for instance, our honorable members here in the room could, in a practical way, work on some of those recommendations through like experience sharing with maybe other provinces and so on and so forth, looking at those specific issues. I know you mentioned gender-based violence and service delivery. I think earlier on when I was mentioning to honorable members that we will touch on some of those recommendations in the NPOA, and we will maybe discuss and see within this room how we would maybe like see and how, do a little exercise and see how we could maybe work on the implementation, for instance, at our level. So I would like to pass on the mic to the honorable members if they have any questions with regards to your submission, Mr. Dalma. Any questions? No? Okay. Okay, Mr. Dalma, it seems there's no questions around the room. So thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Dalma. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
All right. So I don't know if we have time for break, I wanted to ask about, should we break or can we move into the next session? Because we are done with our first two sessions. I think we're doing quite well this time. I think we caught up with the time, so. Yes, can we? Yes, okay. A little comfort break, definitely. Okay.
Yeah. Before we take over, can we just take a quick report? Please. Please. Wait a moment. Okay. She's setting up outside and then we take it off. Okay, please.
done? Are we done? Okay, can I have, okay, first group, who's your speaker? Who would like to speak on behalf?
Okay, so we decided. So, as a collective decision of this committee, sorry. So on the continental side, the APR forum, the panel members, the APR secretariat, and the focal points committee will fall under continental. And then the word focal point will separate both continental and national. And in national will be the National Governing Council, the National Secretariat, and strategic partners. I could be wrong on the strategic partners though.
Okay. And the APRM secretariat, sorry, would you put
Recording in progress.
on the focal point?
It's the National Secretariat, which I was from.
Yes.
National Secretariat consists of the local national government as well.
Okay. And you said, okay, and you said the focal point committee is on national.
Yes.
And the strategic partners?
Strategic partners. It's also your national panel.
Oh, okay. So, sorry. The mic is off. Okay, it's fine. Drum roll. All right. So, group, the one that got the most correct answers is group A. So, the strategic partners are actually continental because we call them strategic at the continental level. And the focal point committee also is continental. Yes, but then I think you got more like the rest correct. So I do have my little tiny reward.
Yeah. Oh, there you go. That's good.
Okay, so Where are we? Where are we? Okay. We will now go into the National Plan of Action of, which is the last bit of the presentation. Okay. In terms of the tool, I just wanted to beam it to you very briefly because we've kind of touched on the different pillars. And this is basically the breakdown and each one of the pillars which I wanted to present. I mean, just for your noting, but I think everything will be shared with you in terms of like the slides and so on and so forth. So you can explore this material on your free time. And yeah, because I know it's been a long day, we shall take you straight into the last session, which will now deal about on the National Plan of Action. So on this presentation, we've kind of pulled out some key findings from the second country review report of South Africa, which is to be launched. I think this information hasn't been shared, so you have the privilege of having firsthand in terms of like some of the findings that are in there, because usually we do not share information until the report is launched by the country. But for the purpose of the exercise and for the purpose of making it a bit more practical, I thought I will just share with you some of the findings. So what I wanted us to do, Honorables, if you allow me, is that looking at the findings, the recommendations that have been made against these findings, I've just picked the first pillar, the PG. When you look at the second recommendation, which is pass the prevention and combating of hate crimes and hate speech bill to discourage incitement against minority groups and foreigners. Sorry, can you all see it? Okay. So yes, with regards to this recommendation, I wanted us to maybe reflect on what would be our role as, being member of the legislature. What would be our role in terms of either advocating, promoting, driving this at the provincial level? How practical would you see yourself intervening, working with the APRM? So this is the kind of discussion we want to have, because like we had highlighted that APRM is a participatory process, and APRM is encouraging ownership from the different stakeholders. Let them be state actors, non-state actors. We all have a part to play into this. And because this might come back to you once the report is launched. And already in this room, I think we can, reflect about practical way. Is it even something that can be done? Do you feel this recommendation is even achievable? Do you feel that, like at provincial level, there's already been work done in relation to that? If there's any best practices also on the topic that you would like to share. So how do you see you would work, and who do you see yourself working with in terms of, like advocating or implementing this kind of recommendations? I don't know if it's clear. If you, okay, I can see it seems that the mind are just, let me give you some time to think then.
The question is what role we will be playing as legislators.
Yes. Do you want the mic?
Are you expecting inputs from us, or what would us as the legislature be doing in order to play a role to combating such?
Exactly. Yes. Let's say today you received this recommendation in Parliament, and then we ask you, okay, let's discuss it. How do we go forward on this? How do you what would you do, basically, and how would you do it? With who would you do it?
It's about listening how we can train our history, our thinkers, what we don't know is that our resource, our position was always based on unity. I applied that saying that we don't have to play roles. If you need to have the same one of the person, but it's not because of racism, you are Christ. There's no the one that mentions woman just you have cases of person with religious yes, it's not it's really true.
All right, honorables, I don't know if I've given you enough time to reflect. I hope I've given you enough time. That's quite meager. Next, share some input. As the of reflections would like to share their reflection. The approach, how you speak. Sharing spokesperson. Okay.
Our approach is a problem. We said because there's already a national plan in place, we need to familiarize ourselves about it. There's the first one. The second one also, as members of legislature, through our officials, we need to draw up a program action for all our stakeholders so that they can understand what does the national plan is about. Laws must be respected. Laws must be respected. Positively, and functions progress. But also, you mustn't put a law and then at the end of the day, not implement it, not enforce it, because it ends up boiling down to this as an appropriate thing. Because I even gave you a practical of one thing. You'll find that health department it has got more foreign doctors than the African doctors. As a politician, I know there's nothing wrong with that. But as an ordinary South African, the question is, why the South African doctors are still unemployed when all of a sudden being a medical doctor is become an industry? How does that be? So our laws sometimes fight against each other. So laws must be respected.
Thank you, Honorable, for that.
Thank you so much. I think I'm covered by what other honorable members have indicated, but we still under a severe attack, particularly as women, that when you are learned, who won't say educated, when you are learned, you still are excluded in critical and senior positions. Yet to support a non-racist and non-racial in a democratic country. It's even worse that we are still operating in an environment where there is still job reservation and exclusion in particular. So then it says that we need to work very hard and ensure that as the legislators, we have this awareness campaigns in our constituencies as we are to different constituencies to say women in particular who are objects of gender-based violence come up and be united and work together as a unity, and issues of xenophobia are eradicated. That we still also attacked at racial basis, that when you are a particular race, you are considered, and we are becoming tolerant as the Black Africans, that in that particular job is reserved for a particular race, which is not supposed to be the case, because everyone that qualifies should be getting that particular job. And thank you very much. The animal answering.
Thank you. I can see on the video. Thank you very much. Well, I think equality still needs to be something that we all are educated on. Because, for example, like here, we are just women in particular. I think undermining still contributes to xenophobia and racism. Because, for example, if her skin is dark or my skin is light, from time to time, I will think because of the color that I have, I'm much better than her, or vice versa. It's that. And then also how we categorize each other. Like, for example, amongst blacks or whites, it will always be that if a black person, even amongst blacks only, it will always be that if another black person is well off, that they corrupt. It starts from not respecting the next person. For me, when I went to high school, I remember we were always taught that you must respect the next person and you must always learn to mind your own business. That way, you have so much respect for the next person. You don't even bother about other things, about other people's life and lifestyle as well. Because you'll find that even amongst us, we might deny it like right now because we're here. Even amongst us, there is always that racial footprint. There will always be there. So from time to time, realistically and truthfully, it will be difficult for us to implement and apply it out there, whilst even amongst us, it's still difficult. Thank you.
Sure. That's true. Thank you so much for your thank you. I don't know if there's any other inputs.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I think that it's important that we don't classify people or judge people or sum people up by their race groups. And I think that's what we've been doing for a long time. We've made a lot of progress, but we still have very far to go. And until we are able to deal with the misconceptions and assigning them, classifying people into race categories, we will take a very long time to get to where we need to go. And I think that as politicians as well, and senior leaders in our society, it's important that it starts with us. Because as politicians, it's very easy to score political points by using racism, making racial remarks and so on. And that is something that we need to consciously, cease from doing if we want to make headway in the big picture. I think that if we are honest with ourselves, we will realize that there are races in every race group. I can tell you that there are races among Indian people, among Black people, white people, and colored people. And those people that still choose to, remain racist, we need to deal with them. There needs to be harsh penalties for hate speech and any form of racial act. And until we start taking that seriously and, putting those measures in place and acting on them, we're not going to really make any headway. And then when it comes to racism, of course, we've made headway in our nation. But until we deal with the economic aspect of racism, I think that is the most important aspect that we need to deal with. Because as long as there is inequality and injustice economically, there will remain bitterness in the hearts of people. And the road to recovery or the road to equality and non-racialism will be a long road. The sooner we deal with that injustice, we can deal with that bitter root and get the healing process underway.
Thank you so much, Honorable. Thank you for all the wisdom. I have a follow-up question, and I think it comes down to what would you think are actually the main challenges that impede your work? What are the limitations in terms, because when we come as APRM and we come and tell you that we have recommendations, there's some policies that need to be put in place. We're not seeing things necessarily from your end. And I listen also as women, it might not also be, actually it is not easy. We also have our challenges, and everyone was highlighting it rightfully that we do, like as women, we do not have the same opportunities or the same access as men would. And I think being in position of leadership as yourselves and still being expected to deliver your work, what would you say are actually the challenges? What are the limitations that we must take into account when we develop recommendations and national plan of actions? What are the realities that we also need to be aware that maybe we should also take into account to make sure that implementation can also be facilitated in the best ways? I don't know if anyone will actually.
Excuse me.
Yes.
Can I intervene in a small way? Can we ask public participation in the chairperson to just tell us maybe if they have started something, or is there a way usually because they work with people, and any complaints that have and petitions that have amounted to such that it already catches their attention when it comes to her. We can just find out from there before we start putting it on the table.
Yes. I believe what my colleague is raising, it's quite important. We always speak of departments or particular sections working as a unit, that they work together. Okay. And if we have that privilege of having a chairperson of public participation and petitions among ourselves, is going to be assisting and we'll be sharing the transparent information. So it's quite important that we get that, because we also have other views to put in. Maybe just allow them to share with us. That's it.
But it's you. Yes. Okay, what to get from you because of the challenges when it comes to you.
Okay, no, thanks. I think one comes in the form of decisions, but for me, decisions, because when your right has been violated, we have the right to raise it.
But we sometimes, other than the petition, the public participation in the province, but you sometimes find it, particularly in local government, whereby there are some problems, they will then go to the nearby, when even if there are challenges of other than issues of xenophobia, any challenges, you normally find that I normally say local government has three. That's a very tough challenge. In a sense that you might find people complaining about housing. They will go to the municipality. Almost find that the municipality does not provide housing. Whether it's the national road or provincial road, but obviously they're going to the it is even better if they go to the municipality. They go to the councillor's house. They will close the road and demand and raise their demands to the council. But obviously, on such matters of xenophobic attacks, I think it's a criminal act. So the relevant department is that you then have to go to to the law enforcement police station and report it. But on issues of public participation and petitions in the province, you normally find that it's normally arranged around the rights of there was a post-settlement of land, and there are some conflict among us that we're giving back our land. Then you normally find that the aggrieved part will then come to the comment and bring about the petition. I think from where we have dealt with, there's a matter whereby another entity, and this only Transnet, is giving houses to their workers. And there are issues with the municipality, they do not find it. Then there should be another intervention that you can be able to call both Transnet and the municipality. There is a complaint, there is a petition that talks to the increased rights that were given to these particular people. What are the issues? It involves a number of things, whether it's the issues of title deeds, issues of official handing over, issues of who are the beneficiaries, issues of maybe if they involve issues of rates, then the municipality also will then raise their issues, try to mediate between the aggrieved and the accused, so to say. But if they come as well, there are cases when you come before the committee, say you testify. So you really have to say I swear, whether to God or to whoever. But you must give something that you can stand even in the court of law with it. I'm not too sure whether I covered it, but the long and short petitions and also the public participation. That's why on the issue of public participation, this is why you normally find that we do not work on our own or alone. When there are issues that we reach out to the public, whether it's perception or related to the constitution, we also work with other spheres, local government, because we sometimes overlap.
Thank you.
Facilitate. If I may ask a follow-up question for the how do you describe the issue of operations in Rwanda? How to categorize it? Because he works with police force. The issue of operation
Yeah. Well, there are a number of campaigns that we might have, and
I'm not putting you in a place. I'm just
I'm trying to think that he has the right to complain he has the right to kind of express his satisfaction. And obviously the police will not, as long as he's not an image or causing damage to a person or even to the property. But everyone has the right to freedom of speech, right to expression, right to complain. I think he's doing that along those lines. Whether it's behavior or not, but as long as now it is one of his rights.
He is doing it along his freedoms.
Thank you so much, Honourables. Yeah. So with regards to the limitations and in terms of the work that you have to deliver, anyone would want to take the floor that she does?
I think the racism and xenophobia is still a burning issue that none of us are ready to take from. Yeah, especially with the members, because if they speak for the many. So if I speak for one kind, just me.
It's not in that particular instance. I'm saying in terms of like when you have to come up with new predictions for issue writing, and you have to make policies or like you have to interview someone. What is the challenges? Like especially I'm from a woman perspective, like what are the challenges as a woman parliamentarian in like on a daily basis, like on your way to delivering the work that you are supposed to deliver on a daily basis? What are the arising issues? Yeah.
I think I agree with Namkele that these matters are very thorny issues. As chairperson of Triple P was alluding to matters that they are dealing with. I also think about the responsibility of the ad hoc committee on land. That one also display these issues so clearly, especially is worse with women that are farm dwellers, because you cannot have a number of cattle that you would love to have. You will not have the ownership, the title deed that you are talking to. And even in terms of the protocols of government, they are not even assisting. Like, for instance, we do not have the mandate as the province, as the national government, whereas we are interacting with these people on a daily basis. And we seem like we are not intervening. When a woman comes to you that my husband was having 200 cattle, they were taken by this farmer that I know that I'm residing in this farm, and they're not being returned back to me. And I am a widow who is struggling, who can't even take my kids to school. Whereas as blacks, we know this. The cattle is our wealth. The land is our wealth. We cannot have ownership of those things. So even the laws, they are not at that level in terms of addressing these issues as immediately as it is necessary to be doing that. And when you look at these things, you are talking about the government buying a farm for a particular community, whereas those people, we don't know where do they get those title deeds, because they didn't come with the land. So those are the challenges that we are still faced with, and it's not yet resolved. And as the women, we are the most being affected with these things on a daily basis. And really, I don't know when are we going to have a solution in terms of being seen as the caring government of the people, who also dealing with the matters of the people as they are. Because they do have resources. If you want your land, they will take the matter to the Court of Appeal, of which you do not have the money to do that.
as the widow, as a farm dweller, whereas you know, this is my land, these were my cattle that were taken away from me. You don't have that money and you just lost the case. Not because you do not have the tangible information, because you do not have the necessary resources to fight your counterparts. And what do our people saying? Let us fight. Because if we are fighting, happen what may, this is our land, then xenophobic attacks do come into play. When xenophobic come into play, the SAPS will be putting who in jail? Those that are disadvantaged also. So that's why I was saying the animal farm kind of thing, it's still at stance. So some animals are more equal than others. That's what we are experiencing. I'm just relating this because I just had it, I think 2 weeks back when I was in Newcastle, when they were literally crying that when a widow was sharing a story that my husband died because the farm owner was saying, your farm, your cattle cannot be kept in this farm. It's overgrazing, so it must be taken away. You don't know where those cattle is taken to. And up to today, until he died, and they cannot do any follow-up. And as the government, and actually died of heart attack. That's it. That's it. Was go to jail, unintentionally. Yes. I wonder if it was spoken a lot on the issue. Once we're still on limitations, I just want to touch on the different sectors that we have in the communities. Your religious and traditional sectors, wherein it's only males dominated and only women can be part of that and lead, particularly in the traditional sector. Your Amakosi is in Luna, where women are not allowed, and as a woman, you can't just go and address me because that's the patriarch of the highest order. In your churches, the pastors were women are not allowed to lead the churches. So I think those are some of the limitations when you are engaged in communities and stakeholders that you say, what's the women's role in this? Yet women are men in terms of population and also are the ones that ensure that there is warmth in the homes, there is part of the economic growth and development, So those are some of the issues that I think we still need to address and speak to at that time. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Sometimes women just infect themselves. I sometimes think to the take for instance the issue of what we are saying now, that a woman can go in the patriarchal homes and whatever. I literally grew up in a patriarchal home and from the royal families and where the left, right, center. The sample is from there. There's this pattern, but also they do not stiffen the voice. That's why I'm saying women sometimes, through socialization, they end up pulling out themselves. Because if you go back when women were actually being killed or whatever during the times of Charlotte, we've got women like that, we've got women like Mugabai, we've got women, so many women who took their positions and really did something. Coming from a very patriarchal background, I always have a voice, whether there are men or the only thing that men don't want, which we call patriarchal, is not the voice, it's the way you put things. Sometimes we do not differentiate between respect, culture, and other things. It's not like they're pulling the rights out of us, but how do you put it? I've never been in a position where I cannot say what I want to say, whether there's a
you.